to Freetown, for instance, may have to embark on a circuitous journey via Europe to do so. The African Continental Free Trade Area is a bright spark on the horizon, but so much still needs to be done. Africa's population is expected to reach 2.5 billion by 2050, which represents a doubling of its current population. The continent's youth population is also projected to reach 850 million in that same period. This could be an asset, but it can also be a keg of gunpowder. It would be an asset if there is a sustained investment to grow Africa's human capital. However, a nightmare scenario could beckon if the burgeoning youth population sees no job prospects that are commensurate to the rich resources across the continent. Zik's appeal wasn't just in regard to the fact that he was broad-minded. He was a beacon of selflessness and understood quite clearly that public office essentially meant service to the people. There was never any hint of hubris in his life. He devoted his life to building an inclusive society. And he didn't just pay lip service to that. He demonstrated that commitment through his actions. For example, it was under Zik's watch as leader of the NCNC that Malam Umaru Altin, a Fulani, emerged as the first mayor of Enugu. It is instructive that he gave his support to a settler from Sokoto than to a fellow Easterner. We should be inspired by such ennobling ideals, especially in the times we live in. Through his exemplary life committed to service, Dr. Azikiwe kindled the flame that lit the path that generations have walked. The challenge for the coming generations is to keep the embers of that flame alive. I have no doubt that an event such as this has the capacity to do just that. I am confident that the ideas and insights that will emerge from here will enhance our quest for a wholly inclusive society, a cause to which Dr. Azikiwe devoted his life. In closing, I would like to say that it is clear to me that applying the core messages of Zik's ideal would go a long way to putting Africa on a path towards resurgence, whereupon we would at last be able to leverage integration across the continent. This would at last enable Africa to obtain credible capacity to negotiate with its huge, youthful population and significant material resources with the rest of the world. With this, Africa will at last move away from the subsistence level to real quantum growth, while freedom from the shackles of poverty and ignorance will be an icing on the cake. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, I have said enough, and you have heard enough from me, right? I do not intend to take on the role of the guest lecturer. That task will eminently be discharged by the very cerebral Dr. Chambers, African Union High Representative and former President of ECOWAS, former United Nations Secretary General, Special Representative. Thank you all for listening. God bless you.
Thank you. You may be seated. We appreciate that address by the chairman of this occasion and the governor of Enugu State, His Excellency Dr. Peter Mba. You will agree with me that this event is not just an annual ritual. It is, to me, some sort of intellectual harvest, and his address has set the tune for us to appreciate what we're going to listen to today for our emancipation. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Mr. Vice Chancellor, Your Excellencies, Your Royal Highnesses, ladies and gentlemen, may I very quickly recognize the presence in our midst of a so to this annual and that is talking about none other Professor A.U. Nonyalo, District Governor, Roro International, District 9142. Oh, no. I didn't hear that applause. Thank you. Thank you. May I also inform you, dear friends, that the royal father of the day is also in the room, and that is His Royal Majesty, Igwe Saraf Ekpe. He is represented by Ozongpu Chief Ralph Okafor. Igwe is the Eze Enuguku and Igwe Umuri. Please, let's make him welcome. The chairman of today's occasion also had in his entourage Barrister Steve Ororo. He is the State Deputy Chairman of the People's Democratic Party. He's in the room, all right? We also have Honorable Chukwudi Inadozie, State Secretary of PDP Enugu State. We also have Chief Frank Anioma, the Special Advisor, Political Matters to the Governor of Enugu State. Also present here is Honorable Toby Odi Nwankpa, State Auditor of PDP. We also have Honorable Uche Obute, State Publicity Secretary of PDP Enugu State. Also here we have Professor J.O. Obuago, former Provost, College of Education Technical, Omonze. Prof, you're welcome. May I also inform you that we have in our midst the University Librarian, and that is talking about Professor Stella Anasi. Prof, you're welcome, Mom. One of the members of the Governing Council of our great university is also in the room, and that's talking about Obuka Oka, Chief Sir Ndubisi Nwobu. Comrade Chidi Chidebe, State Chairman of Anambra State Chapter of PDP, is also in the room. We also have here Professor Ken Nwoba. Also in the room is Ozo Mike Onwaso. All members of Ezeozo's cabinet that are in the room will receive you warmly. Professor Josephat Obuago, former Provost, Federal College of Education Technical Omonze, have recognized him previously. We also have Igwe Ogene of Okpuno. You are welcome, sir. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to invite to deliver his address of welcome to this august gathering this morning, marking the 13th annual Zik lecture series, the Dean, Faculty of Social Sciences, Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Professor Frank Collins Okafor, to please do us welcome.
Excellencies, Mr. Chairman and the Executive Governor of Enugu State, here present, Your Excellencies, dear guests, Your Royal Majesties, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, may you grant me the grace to stand on the protocol as already established. And in a special way, we thank the members of the press, and may I inform us that this program is live on AIT. So for those that may also like to tune in, and we have thousands of people online, the online audience, and they are there watching and following us accordingly. With the joy of fulfillment and inspired by the good feelings of all the staff and students of the Faculty of Social Sciences, Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Awka, I wish to welcome all our guests to yet another academic conviviality, marking the 13th Annual Zik Lecture Series instituted by distinguished Senator Ben in DOB CON. Today's event is remarkable to me because it marks the last Zik Lecture Series I will host as the Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences. Secondly, as a professor of international relations and strategic studies, I am thrilled with the choice of the guest lecturer, His Excellency Mohammed Ibn Chambers, a global diplomat, politician, and academic, and marvel by the ringing relevance of the topic in a world of inexplicable discontinuities. There is no doubt that every right-thinking African is worried by the spate of rising social movements in the continent and its implications on the long sought after, integration in Africa. The recurrent rising conflicts and contradictions generated therein have left Africa at the mercy of itself, and locating their explanatory framework in search of solution in the unending legacies of the great Zik of Africa makes this lecture topical, and here lies the quintessential intellectual sagacity of the guest lecturer who will interrogate these enigmatic postulations. We say, Medawose in Ghana. We thank you, Your Excellency, for accepting this honorarious task. From Professor Okwudibannoli Asisia Sobie, President J.J. Rawlings, President Benjamin Nkapa, President Ernest Bai Koroma, Prime Minister Raila Odinga, Tatiku Abubakar, Chief Emeka Anyoko, Professor Wallace Soyinka, and other distinguished leaders of the nation and continent, respectively, the Zik Lecture Series has recurrently demonstrated in determination to interrogate issues in the system with a view to providing a resounding answer to recurrent decimals in the life of a continent in a seemingly life support. Inspired by the assurances of the flows from the reality of the consistency that thrills the Zik Lecture Series, we wish to express our profound gratitude to a gentleman politician, philanthropist, peacemaker, bridge builder, former special advisor to the president, pro-chancellor and chairman of Governing Council, American University of Nigeria, a distinguished senator of the Federal Republic, and one of the finest statesmen of all time, High Chief Dr. Ben Ndiobi, CON. Ojeli Bondibo, Okozuna Bazigwe, whose generosity and commitment to the propagation of Zik's ideas and legendary, an enterprise that has no peculiar benefits to him, yet he spends and pursues it with all he has. Many thanks to you and your beautiful wife, Chief Mrs. Chiaka Ben Obi, Ordinako Kozo. She is the quintessential immediate past coordinating director, Digital and Innovation Support Group, and current consultant with the Federal Inland Revenue Service of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We believe that a greater joy shall be when the multi-million naira edifice you started for distinguished Senator Ben Diobi Institute for Governance, Legislative Studies, and Zik Research will be completed and handed over to us. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. We thank the chairman of today's event and the Executive Governor of Enugu State, His Excellency Peter Mba, the Chief Guest of Honor, and of course the Solution Governor of Anambra State, Professor Charles Chukwuma Chuludo, who is ably represented today by the Deputy Governor of Anambra State, Dr. Onyekachukwu Ibezim, the distinguished guest of honor and former Governor of Anambra State, Mr. Peter Obi, the royal fathers of the day, Your Majesties, Igwe Alfred Achebabogidi, the Obi of Onitsha, and Obi Sir Gibson Nwabezenwosuezuzoka for accepting to be here in celebration of the great Zik of Africa. We also celebrate all the traditional rulers here. We welcome you. We equally thank the mother of the day, Professor Emeritus Nnamdi Azikiwe, wife of the great Zik of Africa, for your presence. May you grant me the grace to thank our new head 7th substantive Vice Chancellor of Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Professor Bernard Odo, for accepting to align with the philosophy and mission of the Zik Lecture Series and for his immense support. We hope that in no distant time, you will be well acquainted with the details of the lecture series. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chancellor. And to all the staff and students of the faculty who have shown unalloyed commitment to the series, we say thank you so much. We will not forget the annual Zik Lecture Series Committee led by Professor Uche Bezezugo and the advisor, our respected Professor A.U. Nkendele Nonyelo Oka for doing a very good job. To all our guests, we say a very big thank you to you. As we relish the possibility of solutions to the rising social movements in Africa with the instrumentality of Zik's legacies, we pray God to bless and grant you a happy stay here and a hitch-free return to your respective destinations at the end of the occasion. Thank you, and God bless all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the Dean, Faculty of the Social Sciences, Professor Frank Collins Okafor, delivering his welcome address. Please, can we appreciate him one more time? You may have known that this event is streaming live on social media and is also live on AIT, Africa Independent Television. Next is an address by the citizen numero uno, the #1 citizen of our great community, Nnamdi Azikiwe University. Please make welcome Mr. Vice Chancellor, Professor Bernard Odo.
Good morning, highly distinguished guests. We have already spent an hour 30 minutes. And for the want of time and respect for our guests who have come from far and near, let me stand on already established protocols. I'm na ndị igwe, anyị ndị governors, anyị ndị nnukwu mmadụ dị iche iche. But gbaarụ ka m gaa na speech ka I save your time. I am highly delighted to welcome you all to this 13th edition of Zik's annual lecture series, coming less than 3 weeks after my assumption of office as the 7th substantive vice chancellor of our great university, the first alumnus of the university to so privileged. Having had all my university education in this university, I hold myself duty-bound and strongly committed to steer the university to the global reckoning in the Committee of Universities. This I hope to accomplish through the actualization of my vision for the university, to wit, the establishment of Nnamdi Azikiwe University among the top 50 universities in Africa, while reshaping and repositioning the university for a position in the first 500 universities in the global ranking of universities in the next 5 years through the disruptive model. I shared this on my first day in office, and I've also shared some copies to our guest here. This is the strategic framework to boost academic quality, innovation, and global competitiveness. To succeed, I will need and therefore solicit for the support and cooperation of staff, students, and all stakeholders of the university in the challenging but insurmountable task of managing a complex organization such as the university, a community of intellectuals bustling with a plethora of contending ideals and ideas. It is germane to remind us all of the genesis of Zik's annual lecture series. The idea was first conceived by Professor A.U. Nonyelu when he was the head of Department of Sociology, subsequently sub-dean and later dean of Faculty of Social Sciences. It was through this initiative and in concert with the university administration that High Chief Dr. Distinguished Senator Ben Ndiobi, CON, Ojelibo, gave reality to the Zik's annual lecture series by endowing it in perpetuity to immortalize the name of Chief Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, GCFR, the dawn of Nigeria's independence struggle. Let me commend the Faculty of Social Sciences, in which the lecture series is domiciled, for sustaining the series. Not even the much dreaded COVID-19 nor strike actions by the university staff unions could drive the lecture into abeyance. I now welcome, in particular, our distinguished guest lecturer, our distinguished guest, the chairman of this event, His Excellency Dr. Peter Mba, Governor of Enugu State, the chief host, Professor Charles Saludo, Governor of Anambra State, Mr. Peter B. CON, the former Governor of Anambra State. I give the difference due to womanhood to Professor Uche Azikiwe Jokwama Kaino, wife of the late Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, in that capacity and in her personal capacity as a distinguished scholar. I give observance to our royal fathers of the day, His Royal Majesty Igwe Nnemeka Achebe, Abogidi, CFR, MNI, the B of Onitsha, and His Royal Highness Obi Gibson Wosu, Ezuzu of Awka. I greet today's oracle, the guest lecturer, His Excellency Mohammed Chambers, a lawyer and diplomat, currently the African Union High Representative for silencing the guns and former President Economic Community of West African States between 2007 and 2010. having before then served as the executive secretary of that body. These are among a host of high-profile positions he has held in the international community. I leave the rest to his citation. With his in-depth knowledge of and experiences in international diplomacy in tandem with his erudition as an academic, there could not have been a better choice than him as guest lecturer to explicate the theme, Zik's Legacies and the Rising Social Movement in Africa, Rethinking Regional Integration. Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, not only a Nigerian who led the vanguard for Nigerian independence, but also an implacable Pan-Africanist. The 5 pillars of his political philosophy, Zikism, all of which centered on Africa, cannot be elaborated here, save to say that one of them, political insurgents, envisaged the development of nationalism and Pan-Africanism, leading to the unification of Africa into the United States of Africa. Little wonder he was, in those days, frequently referred to as Zik of Africa. None of his peers shared that epithet with him. Perhaps his concept of Pan-Africanism is one of the legacies of Zik that the lecture would interrogate in the context of the extant socio-political reality of Africa. At the risk of being repetitive, I revert attention to the benefactor of the Zik lecture series, High Chief Senator Ben Diobi. As mentioned earlier, he has endowed this lecture series in perpetuity. Not content with this, every year he deploys his extensive reach and clout to attract eminent national and international personality to the lecture. As chairperson, special guests and guest lecture speakers, going further, he had pledged to bat in the University and Institute of Legislative Studies to provide the infrastructure platform to further the capacity for good governance in Nigeria. Today, through this intermediation, the legislative building complex has been roofed and is undergoing finishing touches. I am confident that the 14th edition of the Zik lecture series in 2025 would be held in the auditorium of this legislative building complex. With that achieved, who knows what next Chief Ndiobi would want to do to further bolster the Zik annual lecture series. We cannot thank him well enough. Once again, I welcome him and thank him for all he has done to sustain the Zik lecture series and for his gracious presence in each edition of the series. Let me, on behalf of our council, management, staff, and students, announce that in order to give more life to this lecture, from next year, we will start scheduling our convocation on this same date. That way, more audience, more global visibility, and more attention will be given to this lecture. Once again, I thank you all for coming. May God bless you.
Thank you. That was the Vice Chancellor delivering his address on the occasion of the 13th edition of the annual Zik Lecture Series. Please let's appreciate the Vice Chancellor again. The benefactor of this occasion, of this event, who 13 years ago started to do what he knows how best to do, will be addressing us next. He is one man, apart from being a titled chief of the Awka Ancient Kingdom. He holds the national honor of the Commander of the Order of the Niger. He is a distinguished senator of the Federal Republic. He is one man who does things better and do better things, may I respectfully invite to address this august gathering High Chief, Distinguished Senator Ben Nnamdi Obi.
His Excellency, the Chairman of this occasion, His Excellency, Barrister Dr. Peter Mba, the Executive Governor of Enugu State, the Chief Guest of Honor, His Excellency, Governor Chukwuma Soludo, ably represented by the Deputy Governor, Dr. Onyeka Ibezim. The guest lecturer, His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Ibn Chambers, the Vice Chancellor, Nnamdi Azikiwe University, and the Chief Host, Professor Bernard Ifeanyi Odo. The Royal Father of the day, His Royal Majesty, Igwe Nnamdi Alfred Achebe CFR MNI, DOB of Onitsha, Abogiti. The Mother of the day and the wife of the great Zik of Africa, Professor Mrs. Uche Azikiwe, my own dear wife, Odinaka, the host and the Dean of Faculty of Social Sciences, Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Professor Frank Collins Nnamdi Okafo. Our royal fathers of the day, His Royal Majesty Obigip Singwosu, Ezuzuoka OON, represented by Chief Ken Chukura, the Chairman of the Enugu State Council of Chiefs, and all other highly respected traditional rulers here present, the PDP family from Anambra State and Enugu, the advisor to the Zik lecture series, Professor Eyu Noyelu, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to join the speakers, other speakers, in welcoming all of us here. Yay. It is with joy that I welcome all of you to the 13th Zik lecture series. Let me begin on a note of appreciation to my brother and friend, the chairman of the 13th Zik lecture series, the digital governor of Enugu State, Dr. Peter Mba, for his humility and respect for the great Zik of Africa. Despite the short notice given to him to chair the 13th lecture series, he wholeheartedly accepted. To me, this is a huge sign of respect and honor to the legendary Nigeria's first indigenous president, the Zik of Africa. I thank you, Your Excellency, my dear brother, for this gesture. And I also thank you for the developmental revolution going on in Enugu State under your administration. Turning the state into investors' heaven. To our keynote speaker, Ambassador Ibn Chambers, it's been a long time coming between you and I in this journey of laying the necessary foundations to strengthen institutions in Nigeria and across Africa. I recall the crucial role you played towards the setting up of the National Peace Committee in 2015. During your tenure as the United Nations Special Representative of the Secretary General of United Nations, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, and your service in the Saleh under the leadership, again, of Mr. Ban Ki-moon. After the signing of the 2015 Abuja Peace Accord, the then Secretary General of the United Nations, Dr. Ban Ki-moon, sent a note of advice through our keynote speaker, Ambassador Ibn Chambers, advising me to set up the National Peace Committee as a follow-up to the Abuja Peace Accord. I did not even think twice about the advice. I immediately convened the National Peace Committee and approached the former head of state, General Abdul Salami Abubakar, to chair the committee, and our own Commodore Ebitu Ukiwe to deputize. Today, across the country, where we have off-season elections, we see the efforts being put in place by the National Peace Committee to douse political tension and to encourage the political actors to play the game according to the rules. Our keynote speaker today led the emissary from the then United Secretary General, leading to the formation of the National Peace Committee, and we are proud of the patriotic work they are doing across the nation. After the first debut in 2015, I thank you, Your Excellency, Ambassador Ibn Chambers, for delivering that timely message from the United Nations Secretary General. 13 years ago, I endowed this Noble Zik lecture series. 13 years after, we are proud of the tremendous success achieved so far, doing what the late Zik of Africa will be proud of. Setting a platform for robust academic discussions to key national, regional, and international debates, while also building and recruiting leaders that will be credible, informed, accountable, and capable of solving the myriads of societal problems facing our nation, continent, and the world at large. I am eternally grateful to those who have been partners to the success of this lecture series for the past 13 years now, especially the Faculty of Social Sciences, which houses the endowment of the Zik Lecture Series. I also thank the Zik Lecture Series advisor, Professor Eyun Noelu, on whose advice 13 years ago this lecture series birthed. Let me also thank the university community for graciously approving an institution for the lecture series, the building complex, which is now nearing completion and subsequently awaiting furnishing. As we continue to appeal to spirited individuals to fund the completion of and furnishing of this noble project, I am optimistic we shall deliver this wonderful edifice in no sooner time to enable the Institute immediately commence operations by housing the Zik Lecture Series and certificates and train leaders for greater productivity. I am sure the new Vice Chancellor, Professor Bernard Odo, took into cognizance the importance of this institute when he made a promise of bringing 70 billion naira investments into the university within the next 5 years. I look forward to working with him towards realizing that promise, as this institute, when completed, will play an important role for the university in this regard. Today, we are in good hands, as our keynote speaker, Ambassador Ibn Chambers, will take us on the theme, Zik's Legacies and the rising social movements in Africa, rethinking regional integration in Africa. I urge us all to sit, listen, and add to our body knowledge. Before I take my seat, let me specially appreciate and thank the African Independent Television, AIT, for their magnanimous gesture of covering this event live. By the way, for the past 13 years now, the AIT has consistently brought live coverage of the Zik lecture series to millions of homes across the globe. And I want to say that may the soul of the founder and my very good friend, Dr. Raymond Alejo Dokbesi, continue to rest in peace. Many thanks to the chairman of the DAR Communications Limited, Chief Raymond Dokbesi Jr., and his management team for this kind gesture. Thank you. I wish us all a fruitful deliberation. Thank you.
That was the benefactor and initiator of the Zik lecture series, a man of many parts, making his remarks. If you listen to him very well, you would notice that he is not just a statesman, but I need to add that he is also the best vice president Nigeria is yet to have, and he appears to me to be a new Zikist movement impresario. We thank you so much, High Chief, and we deeply appreciate those remarks. Please, can we appreciate him again by warm applause? Mr. Vice Chancellor, Your Excellencies, Your Royal Highnesses, ladies and gentlemen, the die is cast. We shall be listening to the lecture by Ambassador Ibn Chambers. But before that, I'd like to invite an orator of sort, notable at that, a professor of neurosurgery, to present a citation, and that is talking about Professor Jude Kennedy Emejulu. He will present the citation of our guest speaker for today. Prof, you're welcome. May I request you to invite our speaker to stand beside you. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Compare. Oh, thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, the Executive Governor of Enugu State, I was about to make two very humble requests. The first was that you permit me to stand on the existing protocols to continue. And if the first was granted, I would have made a humble plea that the guest lecturer gently rise to be seen by the world, because he's the cynosure of all eyes today. I'm lucky. Before I could make any of those requests, they've already been granted. Thank you very much, sir. Our guest lecturer, His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Ibn Chambers, is a man of Gangotan credentials. Now, he's a man most of us here are seeing in person, body and soul, probably for the first time. And apart from people like Ojeli Igbo, Ndi Igbo, the benefactor of this lecture series, I know that many people here have never touched him or felt his presence as close as I'm lucky to be doing this morning. Our lecturer is a man who has touched many lives. Most of all hear of him on cable television, AU, United Nations, and wherever international diplomacy holds sway. So it is a great honor that one of the doings of African and international diplomacy is going to be here live, body and soul, to be the lecturer at the 13th Zik lecture series. I am not a diplomat. I'm just a neurosurgeon. I'm a doctor by training. I hold the fellowship of the West African College of Surgeons. Dr. Mohammed Ibn Chambers is a Ghanaian lawyer, diplomat, politician, and academic. Unlike many great men, he didn't japa to UK or Canada, where his family trained him either on scholarship or public well-being. He was born in Bimbilla, Ghana, on the 7th of December. It's just 3 weeks to his birthday today. He is a Muslim, but I'm sure that somewhere in his scriptures, he must have crossed the story of the transfiguration of our Lord Jesus Christ. When Peter suddenly woke up from a trance and said, Lord, it is good that we are here. Let us build 3 tents, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. I would have requested, if the chairman and VC will permit me, that we begin to prepare for a befitting birthday bash for the guest speaker just 3 weeks from now, next Saturday, so we can build 3 tents where he will stay until then. He was trained in his home, Cape Coast and Tamale in Ghana. He went on to get his Bachelor of Arts in Political Science at the University of Ghana in Legon in 1973. Then nature took control. He found himself in New York, where in Cornell University in 1977, he acquired the Master of Arts degree. Subsequently, by 1980, he did his PhD in New York, in Cornell University, USA. 1980 to now is 44 years. So somebody whispered to me and said, as far back as 1995, he would have been qualified to vie for the Vice Chancellor of unizik with 15 years of his PhD. And that is no mean feat. He still went on to obtain the Juris Doctorate degree from the Case Western Reserve University of Law at Cleveland, Ohio, United States of America. With that attainment, he was admitted to the double bar, the bars of the state of Ohio and the bar of the Republic of Ghana. He subsequently served as both a lecturer and school administrator in the USA. Then it was time to come home to serve his people. He came home in 1987, and being the eagle that he was, and still is, his international credentials could not just let him out of the limelight, because a goldfish has no hiding place. You can't believe the pedigree and his rapid climb. When he came home, he had to serve as Deputy Foreign Minister of Ghana. Clap for this one, please. Later, as Deputy Minister in charge of tertiary education. He was later to be the first Deputy Speaker and Member of Parliament of Ghana. With that, it means if the Speaker wasn't there, he holds the gavel. And Sir could be addressed as the Right Honorable, going by the political parlance. Now, at the outbreak of the Liberian Civil War, ECOMOG, which we are all familiar with, this is the history of Nigeria in the past 40 years, or West Africa as well, because we are very deeply involved. He was involved in the ECOWAS mediation efforts till the Accra Comprehensive Peace Agreement, ACPA, in 2003. He was similarly involved in the ECOWAS mediation effort in several transitions from military to civilian rule in a number of West African countries, making him the de facto icon of peace, democracy in Africa in the 21st century. That's no mean feat. Let's appreciate him. From 2002 to 2005, he served as the Executive Secretary of the Economic Community of West African States. that makes him His Excellency. And he didn't stop there. He went ahead 2 years after, 2006 to 2009, to serve as the president of ECOWAS. Please, let's appreciate His Excellency. Soon after leaving that office, he was confirmed as the Secretary General of the African, Caribbean, Pacific Group of States from 2010 to 2013. And at that level, his gigantic profile was not going to stop, not one bit. So the rise was geometric and meteoric. He was the African Union United Nations Joint Special Representative for Darfur. As at this morning, Darfur in Western Sudan is still in the news. And the head of the African Union United Nations hybrid operations in Darfur. It began to appear, either coincidentally or by natural design of providence, that wherever there was war in the world, Dr. Chambers goes there to bring peace to them. So he became a peace ambassador. From 2014 to 2021, he served as the special representative of the United Nations Secretary General and the head of United Nations Office for West Africa and the Sahel, known as UNOWAS. During that period, he was also chairman of the Cameroon-Nigeria Mixed Commission. I think that's one of the roles for which Nigerians remember him most, was always on TV, CNN, CBS, which was established to facilitate. He didn't form it. He was sent to facilitate the 10th October 2002 judgment of the International Court of Justice at The Hague for the Nigeria-Cameroon boundary dispute. I think we remember it. That was the dispute during which we lost Bakassi to Cameroon. The mandates given to him were very clear. One, he had to demarcate the land boundary and the delimitation and do the delimitation of the maritime boundary between Nigeria and Cameroon. He had to ensure withdrawal of troops and transfer of authority in the Lake Chad area along the boundary and the Bakassi Peninsula. He had to address the situation of populations that have been affected by those decisions. I mean, today you're a Nigerian, suddenly Dr. Chambers comes and says you're a Cameroonian, and you have to address those, and that was very vital for peace. Then he was asked to develop recommendations on confidence building and the promotion of peace and cross-border cooperation to ensure a lasting resolution. For that effort, 20th July 2020, that his commission, CNMC, was awarded the 2020 Raymond Milevsky Prize by IBRU from the U.S. Durham University Center of Borders Research for the peaceful resolution of that very thorny, knotty boundary dispute between Nigeria and Cameroon, which, with no less a personality and dignity, probably could have resulted to a war, a formal war between Nigeria and Cameroon. Please, let's appreciate this angel of peace. You can all agree with me that Dr. Chambers indeed has extensive experience from a long and distinguished career in governmental and international services. Currently, he's not resting. He's not retired. He is still the chairman of the AU high-level panel on Sudan. This was an appointment made barely 10 months ago. So all the conflicts in Sudan come under his table to superintend on their path to the long-lost path of peace, a position he was appointed to due to his international and reputable credentials. He also currently serves as a chair of many international bodies. Let me just take a few. When I compiled his resume online, I got about 400 pages. I need to bring it down to barely 4 or 5 pages. And that's not easy, sir. He's the chairman of the ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme Task Force. He's the chairman of the advisory board of the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center in Accra. He is chairman of the advisory board of the Institute for Strategic Studies in Africa. He is member of the board of governors of the Center for Humanitarian Dialogue in Geneva. He is a member of the board of governors of the Swedish International Peace Research Institute in Stockholm, Sweden. And of course, coming very closely home and emotionally, he's the member of the West African Elders Forum, Goodluck Ebele Jonathan Foundation in Abuja. And currently, he actually stays in Abuja. Let's appreciate him. So someone had called him in March 2023, when he was appointed the African Union High Representative for silencing the guns and bombs. He told him to beware of the ideas of March. That appointment in pursuant to the UN's objective to end all conflicts and to stop gender violence, terrorism, and prevent genocide in the continent of Africa. They were given a target of the year 2030 to accomplish those tasks. At that appointment, a former Secretary General of the African Caribbean Pacific Group of States and former President of ECOWAS had described Dr. Chambers' pedigree in these words, which I want to borrow. He said, Dr. Chambers brings with him decades of a rich mix of political experience, resourceful institutional leadership at national, regional, continental, and global dimensions. Dr. Mohammed Ibn Chambers is married to Khadija, and both of them, they have 2 children, a male and a female. The female's name is Shakira, and I have searched the internet for 1 month for the name of the son, and I've been largely unsuccessful, sir. Perhaps it's for security or for strategic reasons. His hobbies include soccer and horse riding, and he had once, at an interview, admitted to listening to the Latin American music called salsa. He equally quipped that occasionally he attempts to dance to salsa. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have the distinguished privilege and honor of presenting to us His Excellency, Dr. Mohammed Ibn Chambers, a quintessential leader, icon of democracy in Africa, international diplomat, continental peacemaker, as the guest speaker for the 13th Annual Zik Lecture. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Prof, for that very warm introduction. It's much appreciated. Chairman for the occasion, the Executive Governor of Enugu State, His Excellency Dr. Peter Mba, the Chief Host for the occasion, the Executive Governor, Anambra State, His Excellency Professor Charles Soludo, ably represented here by my brother, the Deputy Executive Governor. The Vice Chancellor, the benefactor of the Zik Memorial Lecture Series, most distinguished Senator, Dr. Ben Ndiobi, CON, Jelibo Indigo, and Madame Chaka Obi. His Royal Majesty, the Obi of Onisha, Nyameka Achebe, other royal fathers here present, the mother of the day, Her Excellency, Professor Uche Azikiwe, all protocols duly observed, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'd first like to thank the Nnamdi Azikiwe University for inviting me to give this year's edition of the Zik Lectures. I'd also like to extend my deep appreciation to the benefactor of the Nnamdi Azikiwe Lecture Series, Senator, High Chief, Dr. Ben Obi, CON, Jelibo Ndigo, and to Mrs. Chaka Obi for the very warm traditional Anambra hospitality that has been extended to my delegation and I since our arrival in Nigeria. My lecture comes in a long line of impressive, thought-provoking ones previously given by a lot of notable African personalities, including my own former boss, late President of Ghana, Jerry John Rawlings, and several other personalities already mentioned today. We are gathered to commemorate the life of one of the leading lights of Pan-Africanism, the great Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe. Some knew him as the father of Nigerian nationalism. Others called him by his traditional title, the Owele of Onitsha. But he has been popularly revered simply as Zik of Africa, and for good reason. He lived a full life, most of which was sacrificed for the freedom of his beloved country, Nigeria, and of Africa. I never had the honor of meeting Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe. Even though I did not have this privilege of knowing him personally, his death touched me deeply. It was a Saturday like this one, May 11, 1996. On that fateful day, the world lost a giant. A great African baobab tree had fallen. Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, the first president of Nigeria and one of the most influential figures of Africa's independence movement, passed away at the University of Nigeria Teaching Hospital in Enugu after a prolonged illness. At the time of his death, Zik of Africa was 91, a man whose life stretched across nearly an entire century, a century in which the course of African history itself was radically changed. Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, born on November 16, 1904, in Zunguri, northern Nigeria, and as our chairman has reminded us, the Venerable Zik would have been 120 years today. He came into the world at a time when the colonial machinery was tightening its grip across Africa. His upbringing was shaped by his colonial context, one that he spent a lifetime dismantling through the power of ideas, activism, and leadership. Zik, as he was fondly called, was more than a politician. He was a visionary with a relentless belief in the promise of an emergent Africa, where national borders mattered less than the shared goals of freedom and progress of all Africans. The news of his passing spread like wildfire, sending shockwaves across Nigeria and beyond. The tributes that poured in were not just from Nigerian statesmen or African leaders. He was mourned globally as a symbol of the fight for freedom and dignity of our continent. Leaders from all over the world prepared to pay their final respects, understanding that Zik's legacy went beyond borders and politics. For many, he wasn't just a statesman. He embodied the ideal of a free Africa, taking its rightful place in the world, united and transcending tribal allegiances and separate nation states. When the announcement of Zik's death reached Accra, the urgency to honor his life was immediate. I was summoned as then Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs to participate in the consultations about Ghana's official delegation to his funeral. It was decided that the Honorable Kojo Botio, a former foreign minister in Nkrumah's first government, and one of Osagyefo's closest allies during the Ghana struggle for independence, would lead the delegation, and rightly so. Botio was no stranger to Zik. In 1947, when Zik and his colleagues from Nigeria, which included Mrs. Fumilayo Razonkuti, the mother of the Afrobeat king Fela, were preparing for the Pan-African Congress in London, it was Botio who had traveled from Oxford, where he was then a student, to London to assist them in the secretarial work for that important occasion. Zik did not forget to mention this when he met Botio again in 1959, this time as part of Nkrumah's entourage to Enugu, this led by Osagyefo himself when he came as Prime Minister of Ghana to the Eastern House of Assembly. That was another giant, talking of the Osagyefo. And there's no way you can tell the story of one of them without telling the story of the other. After all, Zik it was who influenced Nkrumah to go to America and inspired him to attend his alma mater, Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, from where Zik himself had graduated with a master's degree in 1932. I was assigned the responsibility of delivering this decision to Honorable Kojo Botio personally. I can still recall the gravity of that moment, informing him that he would lead Ghana's delegation to the funeral of his old friend, Zik, a man with whom Ghana shared so much history. That moment reminded me of how deeply interconnected our histories are, how the legacy of men like Azikiwe, Nkrumah, and others shape not only the destiny of our own nations, but the entire African continent. And these great men have left upon us the responsibility to push forward the vision of a strong, prosperous, and dignified Africa that they had only begun to construct. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Zik was not called Zik of Africa for nothing. He preached and practiced Pan-Africanism right from his student days overseas to when he returned to the continent. After his studies abroad, where he earned multiple degrees in political science, anthropology, and religion, Zik could have returned directly to Nigeria to join the growing nationalist movement. But instead, he chose Ghana, then the Gold Coast, as the site to begin his practical engagement with African nationalism. In 1934, he became the editor of the African Morning Post in Accra, where his journalism was radical and unflinching. Through his column, The Inside Stuff, he advocated for black pride, criticized colonialism, and promoted the idea of a united Africa. Zik's time in Ghana was a significant chapter in his life, as it illustrated his belief in the interconnectedness of African struggles. He understood that liberation in one part of Africa was meaningless if others remained shackled under colonialism. His philosophy of unity wasn't just theoretical, it was lived and practiced. This is the same spirit that drove him to establish the West African Pilot, which acquired controlling interest in 12 other Afrocentric newspapers in Nigeria when he finally came home. And this became powerful tools for the nationalist movement. His journalism was not a profession for him, but a weapon used to expose injustice, dismantle colonial narratives, and awaken African consciousness. When Zik returned to Nigeria, his political journey began in earnest. He co-founded the National Council of Nigeria and the Cameroons with Herbert Macaulay, Nigeria's leading nationalist at the time. As one of the most influential figures in the struggle for Nigerian independence, Zik tirelessly advocated for self-government. His political career was not without its setbacks. He faced opposition, betrayal, and even physical threats. Yet, Zik remained committed to his cause, believing that Nigeria's freedom was essential for the emancipation of the rest of Africa. His political career saw him rise to become the premier of Nigeria's Eastern region, and later, Nigeria's Governor General, and then First President, when the country became a republic in 1963. Even as the head of state, his leadership style was shaped by his philosophy of African unity. Zik consistently pushed for policies that would strengthen ties between African nations and reduce divisions created by colonial borders. His approach to politics stood in sharp contrast to the ethnic nationalism that characterized other leaders of the time. While others focused on advancing regional or tribal interests, Zik was committed to the idea that national identity should trump ethnic identity. In fact, as highlighted in the document of Ethiopians and Pragmatists, this belief sometimes cost him support even from his own ethnic groups, the Igbo. But Zik was undeterred. He knew that the dream of a united Nigeria, and by extension, a united and strong Africa, could only be achieved by transcending national and ethnic loyalties. I dare say here that given the educational ambition, entrepreneurial drive, and spirit of adventure of the Igbo, Zik believed they would contribute tremendously to the liberation, economic growth, and trade integration of Africa. Little wonder that today you would find in practically every African country a community of Igbo professionals, traders, and business persons thriving and creating opportunities for themselves and their host countries. At the heart of Zik's political life was his deep commitment to Pan-Africanism. His speech, The Future of Pan-Africanism, reflects his lifelong belief that Africa's destiny lies in its unity. For Zik, Pan-Africanism was not just about solidarity. It was about building institutions that could promote collective security, economic cooperation, and political integration. He envisaged a future where African states would either federate or confederate, voluntarily pooling sovereignty to achieve greater strengths and common goals. His belief in the importance of human dignity and freedom was evident in his call for African states to ratify conventions guaranteeing fundamental human rights, social security, and economic opportunity for all citizens. Zik was particularly concerned about how post-colonial states clung to the cultural and political legacies of their colonial rulers, Anglophone, Francophone, Lusophone, etc., which often bred suspicion and rivalry, unnecessary rivalry, between African nations. In his speeches, he argued that African unity must transcend these colonial legacies if the continent was to achieve lasting peace and prosperity. This was why Zik advocated for for regional cooperation frameworks, such as customs unions and common markets, long before these ideas became concretized in the Lagos Plan of Action for Africa's Integration, and now the African Union's Agenda 2063. He also emphasized the need for African countries to reject foreign interference. He believed that Africa should stand together under a doctrine of non-interference. For Zik, a united Africa could not only ensure internal peace, but also protect the continent from the insidious influence of external powers. His commitment to unity was reflected in his speeches and political life. It was evident in his personal choices. His decision to begin his professional and political career in Ghana was an early indication of his belief that African unity transcended borders. Throughout his career, he built alliances across ethnic lines, formed partnerships with other African leaders such as Kwame Nkrumah, Jomo Kenyatta, Julius Nyerere, Haile Selassie, Kenneth Kaunda, to name a few, and supported efforts to create regional political unions. His advocacy for economic cooperation and social integration was not limited to Nigeria. He actively participated in discussions about broader African unity, such as those leading to the creation of the Organization of African Unity in 1963. Even in retirement, Zik remained engaged in politics, running for office in 1979 and 1983. Although unsuccessful, his participation demonstrated his unwavering belief in democracy, constitutional governance, popular participation, and the building of accountable institutions across Nigeria and beyond. In the story of his life, we find valuable lessons for today's Africa, a continent still grappling with the basic problems of underdevelopment, poverty, division, food insecurity, youth unemployment, and governance systems that have proven unresponsive to citizens' needs. These account for the widespread disillusionment with liberal democracy across the continent, especially among young people who constitute more than 70% of our population and who believe that Africa has been unable to take its economic destiny into its own hands. Zik observed how colonialism left African nations economically fragmented and overly dependent on their former colonizers. He argued that without a unified economic approach, African countries will remain vulnerable to external powers and exploitative economic arrangements. Today, African nations still face this dependency. Most African economies are reliant on exporting raw materials and importing finishing goods, a dynamic that perpetuates trade imbalances. There is still minimal processing of agricultural products by way of value addition. And in the extractive industry sector, African ownership has been reducing, and again, little value addition is taking place. Consequently, Africa retains less than 10% of the value chain of most of its precious minerals. And African continental and regional organizations depend largely on foreign financing to fund their operations. According to the Africa Governance Index by the Mo Ibrahim Foundation, African economies are frequently susceptible to external shocks, as seen with the COVID-19 pandemic, and more recently, the effects of the Russian-Ukraine conflict. These crises have underscored Africa's precarious position within the global economic system and the importance of Zik's vision of an internally strengthened economy that could withstand global disruptions. Unfortunately, contemporary Africa remains a major importer of stable commodities, making it susceptible to price fluctuations beyond its control. Zik also stressed that political freedom was incomplete without economic independence. In his view, a politically free yet economically dependent continent would be vulnerable to internal dissatisfaction and external manipulation. Today, Zik's words echo in the lives of millions of young Africans, the Gen Z, and we have seen the struggles that they are engaged in today. Struggles to find work and sustain themselves, often leading to disillusionment with democratic governance and an interest in alternative systems. This issue is particularly pressing, as Africa's youth population is the largest in the world. Data from Afrobarometer reveals that while democracy is widely supported in theory, young people across Africa are increasingly disenchanted with its practice. Youth unemployment remains a significant challenge. The World Bank reported that youth unemployment rates in sub-Saharan Africa were among the highest globally, with some regions facing rates above 50%. The absence of meaningful job opportunities have left young Africans feeling alienated and frustrated with political leadership, contributing to the lack of faith in democratic institutions and the sporadic unrest across the continent. Corruption compounds this sense of disillusionment. Transparency International's Corruption Perception Index consistently ranks African countries among the most corrupt in the world. And many young Africans view corruption as a major obstacle to development and to their progress. The Mo Ibrahim Foundation's index also highlights governance failures, with unaccountable leadership eroding trust in democratic institutions. This erosion of trust has real consequences. It fuels migration, the Japan that we often witness, some of our young people taking risks, walk across the Sahara, try to swim across the Mediterranean at great peril. Civil unrest and a growing preference for authoritarian figures who promise stability and growth over democratic principles and stagnation. The great Zik warned that without unity, Africa would be vulnerable to political instability and external intervention. He advocated for a collective security approach that would guard against foreign influence and stabilize the continent from within. Yet today, political instability remains one of Africa's most significant challenges, with internal conflicts and security issues exacerbated by foreign interests and intervention. The NATO intervention in Libya, which resulted in the killing of Gaddafi, triggered the collapse of the country and unleashed terrorists and violent extremists in the Sahel countries. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, which today are threatening to quit ECOWAS, have experienced multiple coups in recent years, largely due to dissatisfaction with civilian governments which have been overwhelmed by the terrorist threat and have failed to deal with the spread of terrorism and the existential security threats facing their countries. These security threats are emanating from a fractured Libyan state, unable to control the flow of terrorists, separatists, and other international criminal groups across the Sahara-Sahel zone. Zik's call for a united African defense mechanism resonates here, as these nations face both internal strife and pressures from foreign powers interested in maintaining dominance over Africa's political, economic, and security systems, especially its vast strategic minerals. These security challenges are linked to Zik's concern about economic fragmentation and disunity. When African nations remain economically fragile, they are vulnerable to both internal power struggles and external exploitation. Moreover, instability often creates an environment where extremist groups flourish, posing a direct threat to democratic governance and regional stability. According to the Global Terrorism Index, Africa has become one of the regions most affected by terrorism, with groups exploiting weak governance and lack of opportunity to recruit young people. The success of the multinational joint task force, the MNJTF, deployed by the countries of the Lake Chad Basin area to fight Boko Haram terrorists is illustrative of the strengths in a united African security architecture and a common approach. Whilst there remain isolated attacks by Boko Haram here and there, now and then, this largely Nigerian-funded military alliance of affected countries has undoubtedly degraded the infrastructure of Boko Haram and the fighting capacity of the terrorist group. A similar determined approach across the Sahel region, involving major African countries with proven military and financial capabilities, will be decisive in defeating the various terrorist groups menacing the very survival of these Sahelian states today. Across the continent, we see that social movements are rising, just as Zik and his contemporaries rose to challenge colonialism and imperialism. Recent protests in many African countries have highlighted young people's restlessness and political expression. How shall we respond? If Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe were alive today, facing the challenges of poverty, unemployment, corruption, and insecurity, which are the drivers of these social movements today, he would likely have echoed the message that he spent his life championing. He would have insisted that the most effective solution for Africa's problems lie in African solutions. He would have urged Africans to harness their tremendous resources to meet the basic needs of their populations, the needs of security, shelter, clothing, education, health, employment, infrastructure, etc. That is, to tackle the urgent issues of poverty and meet the basic needs of the population, to stem this rise of social movements. Through his speeches and writings, particularly The Future of Pan-Africanism, Zik envisaged African unity as a way to establish political stability, economic self-sufficiency, increasing cross-border trade, and common security architecture across the continent. He believed that a united Africa could stand strong against internal and external challenges and become a force on the world stage if countries pool their resources together to create common markets, strategic industries, and strong continental infrastructure. This is why it is encouraging that beyond responding somewhat reactively to the challenges of our time, Pan-African movements such as Africans Rising, and I see that Anambra is rising. These are movements to mobilize and renew the commitment of all of us to the vision of Zik, to the vision of a strong Africa. For example, the Borderless Africa campaign is being championed by young Africans and other civil society organizations, Africans Rising, made up mainly of young people across the continent, pushing for the removal of visas for intra-African travel, removal of tariffs to promote higher levels of trade among African countries. It is sad that decades after Zik and others, African people can still not move freely across their own continent. And in the ECOWAS sub-region, our own sub-region, intra-West Africa trade is still hovering around a paltry 12 to 15%. By way of comparison, the EU intra-European trade is between 65 and 70%. In the ASEAN region, where Asia, we often look at it and we say Asia is prospering, intra-ASEAN trade is at least 60%. They are trading among themselves. That means they are creating job opportunities for their young people, keeping them productive and out of harm's way. The AU adopted a protocol for free movement, but only 4 countries have yet ratified it. And these countries are Mali, Rwanda, Niger, Sao Tome, and Principe, while it requires 15 ratifications to come into force. Perhaps Nigeria and Ghana can take the lead as a challenge to champion this cause in honor of Dr. Azikiwe. In Zik's view, unity was not just a means to an end, but the foundation upon which Africa's future must be built. So African unity as the key to solving the root causes of the continent's poverty. He believed that allowing Africans to take hold of their tremendous human and natural resources, engage in beneficiation, developing appropriate technologies for transforming the lives of rural populations, providing relevant education and skills training to Africa's youth and women would propel the continent into a post-colonial world of genuine independence and prosperity. In light of the current challenges facing Africa, and particularly African youth, the time has come to really get serious about the business at hand. And in order to stem the rising social movements of disenchanted African youth, I believe we must move quickly in addressing the following. 1, political unity and cooperative governance. Zik was acutely aware of the political fragmentation that colonialism had left behind, warning that Africa's progress would be stunted without cooperative government. And we are seeing that. He believed that Africa should establish a political framework where states could work together on shared interests while respecting individual sovereignty. In modern times, this vision could be realized through an empowered African Union and African regional economic communities, that is RECs, such as ECOWAS, with authority, real authority, to forge cooperative policies across the continent. And a framework of cooperative governance, African nations would jointly address critical political issues, such as anti-corruption efforts, transparency measures, judicial independence, open governance, and democratic integrity. Zik also foresaw the need for a strong collective security system in Africa. In the future of Pan-Africanism, he warned against the dangers of external interference and internal conflicts, advocating for an African defense strategy. In today's context, where violent conflicts, insurgency, terrorism, and instability persist across the continent, Zik's vision of a common African defense force is prescient. This calls for a speedy operationalization of the African peace and security architecture, and in particular, the African Standby Force, with its regional component, for instance, the ECOWAS Standby Force. A unified African Defense Force could dramatically improve the continent's ability to address security challenges. Terrorism and insurgency have plagued regions such as the Sahel, the Horn of Africa, and Central Africa. These issues are beyond the capacity of any single country to tackle alone. But with a common defense force, Africa could effectively deploy resources and personnel to conflict zones, supporting peacekeeping operations, and stabilizing countries and areas at risk. Zik also emphasized the importance of Africans creating its industries rather than relying on foreign imports. In his vision of Pan-Africanism, he outlined a unified approach to industrialization where African states could work together, pooling resources, expertise, and labor. He saw that Africa's development could only be sustainable if it was grounded in self-sufficiency and collective investment. In contemporary times, a united industrial program could revolutionize Africa's economy. By developing a centralized strategy for industrial growth, Africa could focus on building essential industries such as manufacturing, technology, and agriculture, transforming the continent from a supplier of raw materials into a producer of finished goods. This shift would not only create jobs, but would foster a competitive economy that could reduce Africa's reliance on imported goods and boost self-reliance. Under a unified platform, Africa could establish regional industrial hubs to maximize each country's natural resources and talents. The new Partnership for Africa's Development under the African Union Development Agency, order NEPAD, has rolled out several initiatives in line with AU's Agenda 2063 that should be implemented. Projects such as the Single African Air Transport Market, the African Integrated High-Speed Railway Network, and free movement of all persons, and African Passport are important projects in the integration of Africa and in line with Zik's vision. Nigeria is also among countries that are involved in the 4,500-kilometer Algeria to Nigeria fiber optic project. Reliable information indicates that the Algeria to Niger border segment has been completed and is operational, but awaiting reinforcements carrying loop systems to ensure high network availability. The feasibility study focusing on the Chad, Niger, and Nigeria segments are also underway. I want to also highlight what a unified industrial program can do to Africa's collective development as envisioned by Zik, taking a cue from the efforts of one of Africa's leading institutions, the African Development Bank Group, and its partners. Over the last 8 years, the bank has invested an estimated $55 billion in infrastructure, including roads and highways, transport corridors, seaports, airports, ICT infrastructure, and regional power networks. A few examples of this massive investment include the highway connecting Enugu to Bamenda in Cameroon, a transport corridor that will serve 11 million people. The railway line connecting Kano to Maradi in Niger Republic, and the ECOWAS flagship Abidjan to Lagos highway project. The Anambra State Investment Summit, which took place just 2 days ago to showcase projects that have progressed from conceptualization to bankability, is a step in the right direction to position Anambra State as a gateway to attracting both foreign and local investment. The Anambra Industrial City, the Rail Master Plan, and the new Awka City are critical projects that would create job opportunities for the youth and produce not only for the Nigerian market, but for the sub-region and the continent as a whole. The Dangote Refinery, a sprawling industrial complex, the largest single-train refinery in the world, with a capacity to produce 650,000 barrels of refined petroleum products per day, is a testament to Nigerian ingenuity and African entrepreneurship. Projects like the Dangote Refinery create jobs, have multiply effect on the national and regional levels, provide cheaper and reliable fuel for transportation, agriculture, and industries. These are the types of transformational projects that would propel Africa out of poverty, and indeed, the kind of major industries that we need across the continent to create high-paying jobs for our youth. Zik warned that Africa's economic fragmentation and dependency on foreign currencies and markets would also leave it vulnerable to exploitation and economic instability. A united African currency would reduce transaction costs across borders, making intra-African trade more accessible and profitable. A single currency would give the African Central Bank, to be headquartered in Nigeria, control over monetary policy, allowing it to focus on the unique economic needs of the continent rather than accommodating external demands. By managing its currency collectively, Africa would have a stronger negotiating position in global financial markets, attracting foreign investments under terms more favorable. And an important first step in this regard is the creation of the West African ECO, which ECOWAS has been spearheading for some time now. Time has come for ECOWAS member states to demonstrate commitment to this strategic tool in West African integration by meeting the conditions for the introduction of the common currency, the ECO, without continuously postponing it. The African Continental Free Trade Area, AfTA, would also be a boost to a common currency. The more we trade among ourselves, the more it becomes evident that we desire a common currency. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in Zik's United Africa, we find not only solutions to individual crises, but a comprehensive approach to building a stable, prosperous continent. His vision is a blueprint for a self-reliant Africa, where economic, security, and political integration lay the foundations for true independence. The establishment of a single African currency, a free trade zone, unified industrialization programs, a common defense force, and cooperative governments are essential steps in realizing this dream. In honoring Zik's ideals, we must embrace a pathway towards a secure, economically independent, and politically stable Africa. His legacy calls upon African leaders and citizens alike to adopt a mindset of unity, to move beyond the boundaries drawn by history, and to build a future where Africa's people are empowered, prosperous, and united. In naming the Nnamdi Azikiwe University in Awka, where we are today, the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, the gateway to Nigeria in Abuja, and numerous streets, stadia, and libraries across Nigeria and Africa. After Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, we are entirely doing the right thing, and he's entirely deserving of it. As we assemble here to commemorate the life and times of an African icon, the African Union is in search of the next chairperson of the Commission. It is hoped that in the search, the focus will be on the Pan-African credentials of the candidate, their vision on the issues that were at the core of Zik's profound thought, the projection of African personality and dignity, good governance, harnessing the continent's resources for the benefits of its peoples, especially its youth, through free movement of persons, goods, and services in a truly borderless Africa, and a collective security for the protection and safety of Africans. The current focus of the campaigns on the linguistic divide, Anglophone, Francophone, Lusophone, etc., are sadly a throwback to the colonial divisions of old. The searchlight should be on which candidate can take the continent on a pathway towards realizing the dreams of the founding fathers of Pan-Africanism, such as Zik, embodied today in the noble objectives of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area and the Africa Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. To conclude, allow me to quote from a speech Zik delivered in 1959 during the visit of Osadifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah to the Eastern Region House of Assembly. And he said, and I quote, "I look forward eagerly to the day when Nigerians, as citizens of a fully independent and sovereign state, can join our honored guests and the people of Ghana not only in enjoying political freedom, but also in participating in the titanic struggle for the freedom of all Africa from exploitation in every form, and under God, create a hate-free, fear-free, and a greed-free continent peopled by free men and women. And I pray that Almighty God may give us the strength to accomplish this Herculean task, which it has pleased history to assign unto us." That was there at that time. "Which it has pleased history to place upon us, the current and future generations." Will somebody say amen? Amen. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, you will agree with me that His Excellency has delivered with clarity of purpose in a rather lucid and erudite manner, reminiscent of the oratory prowess of Owolowo Onitsha, the great Zik of Africa, whose posthumous birthday we remember through this lecture series. I suppose the theme of today, Zik's legacies and rising social movements in Africa, rethinking regional integration in Africa, has received greater illumination through the presentation of His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Ibn Chambers. Ladies and gentlemen, let us appreciate him again for this presentation. Thank you. Mr. Vice Chancellor, Your Excellencies, Your Royal Highnesses, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, may I have the singular honor and privilege to invite to make his remarks the Governor of Anambra State, His Excellency Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo, who is here wearing the face of the Deputy Governor, Dr. Onyekachukwu Ebezim.
Thank you. Well, mine may just take a different trajectory because we've had quite a long day. On behalf of Mr. Professor Chukwuma Charles Soludo, who was here in the last edition of this, he would have loved to be here too, but not for some very important state matters. I want to welcome all of you in a special way. Thank the chairman of this occasion, His Excellency Dr. Peter Mba, for making it here and quite on time. I think he came before most of us, and that is leadership by example. Then the guest lecturer, His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Chambers. I want to also thank you on behalf of Anambra State for making it yesterday to our Anambra Invest Summit. And then you're here again. And by the time you finished your guest lecture, I think the other speakers have nothing to say. Well thought out, and we're wondering how many days it took you to get to this. But here we are celebrating a man who we cannot finish in one day. The Vice Chancellor, Nnamdi Azikiwe University, the brand new Vice Chancellor, Professor Ben Odo, and an alumnus of this institution. I think the first time we are having our own as a Vice Chancellor. The benefactor of Zik lectures, Ojelibo, our own father, Senator Dr. Ben Obi, and your amiable wife. Thank you on behalf of Mr. Governor for keeping this dream alive. The mother of the day, Professor Azikiwe, staying near you today is a rare privilege, and I wouldn't take that for granted. Thank you, Mommy, for finding our time to be with us here today. Our own Abogidi and the traditional rulers, on behalf of yourself, I want to greet even those from Enugu that are here. We also welcome you to this series. The members of the university community, on behalf of Mr. Governor, we also want to thank you for keeping this dream alive. All of us are beneficiaries of this legend we are celebrating today. I think he's even greater in death than when he was alive. Growing up, this is one man we never believed could die. So many stories told about Nnamdi Azikiwe. And I think those stories are now true because he's even greater in death than when he was alive. The Zik studies, the unizik movement, and a lot of things. And then where we are today, the great university, Nnamdi Azikiwe University, giving the Igbo land two great universities, University of Nigeria and Nsukka, and our own university. This is a visionary man that we are celebrating today. Just like the guest lecturer said, in Anambra State, we are keying into the vision of this great man. Just yesterday, we also celebrated our own a memorial lecture of Chukwuemeka Odimegwu Ojukwu. This is Anambra State, the home of great men, both dead and living. It's a state that will continue to soar high. It's a state that is being looked upon by every other state in this country. And that is why citizens of this state are not just referred as citizens of Anambra State, but citizens of Nigeria, and here we have not Zik of Nigeria, but Zik of Africa. Dragging you all the way from Ghana, you've told us a lot of things today. And in my little way, I asked if you could send a soft copy of this your lecture. Quite inciting. A lot of things to do with it. And the Vice Chancellor was already developing something from your speech today. On behalf of Mr. Governor, I want to thank you again for making this a success. And then the Vice Chancellor too, for your visionary thoughts of matching this series with the convocation. But one challenge, you may have to fight a lot with time, because one day is not enough to talk about this great man. On behalf of Mr. Governor, I want to welcome all of you and thank you for coming to make this series a success. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you very much. That was the governor of Anambra State, Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo, making his remarks at the 13th edition of the Zik lecture series. My dear friends, we omitted a few persons in the course of the recognition. Let me very quickly tell us that Professor Nneka Obi is in the room. Thank you very much for joining us. Oli, I should say. Professor Jaja Wanebo is also here. Chief Celestine Obaka is in the room, and we also have Professor Uche Ajato. You're most welcome. The next person to make remarks is a lady of substance. She is a very gentle mother and mother of all. I recall with nostalgia and with some reminiscences how she used to drive in with a royal blue colored flatboat 230 Mercedes parked in front of Institute of Education at the University of Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, I talk about a mother of all and the mother of the day. She'll be making some remarks now to us. Please make welcome with a warm applause Emeritus Professor Uche Azikiwe.
Thank you. I will humbly plead, if I may use Igbo, Biko, if I should be allowed to stand on the existing protocol. The chairman, permit me, Your Excellency, to stand on the existing protocol, please. Because I think the time is no longer on our path. Every November 16 is a special day in the family. And it seems it's also a special day in the country as a whole. Enugu State, Anambra State, Southeast as a whole. And Ojeli Igbo, High Chief, distinguished Senator Nnamdi Azikiwe, has added another notch on that special day, making November 16 a special day in Nigeria and in our lives. I don't know what to say on how to appreciate Senator Obi. He's been like an elder brother to my children. He's been their mentor. Chief Obi, thank you. Dalo, Chukwu gozie gị. And the lady beside her, chillax, Chi Pepe. Please continue to take good care of Senator Obi, so that he will live long to make sure that this Zik lecture is something that will go international in future. Thank you, Chi. Dalo. I want us also to say a big thank you to the Anambra State government. Unfortunately, I didn't attend last year because there are many Zik this, Zik that on November 16. Today, you will listen to what happened in Abuja, November 16, by a group known as Igbo Nsukka, something. They are also doing their own November 16, Zik, something. I've forgotten the details. But it's the same Zik of Africa, our own Zik. I want to also express the family's gratitude to the unizik, because since Senator Nnamdi Azikiwe established this annual lecture, it has been growing from strength to strength. And maybe the success is also based on the faculty it is instituted, social sciences. I remember when Nonyelo started it, we normally sit at the old end, the old hall somewhere, when you go through the old second gate. So I appreciate the faculty and all the deans and HODs that have managed to put the lectures together. The entire family of Nnamdi Azikiwe is very grateful to Nigerians. They have not let his legacies to die or to be forgotten. No matter what they say, there are still people who appreciate what Nnamdi Azikiwe did, not just for Nigeria, not just for West Africa, but for Africa. And that brings about the Zik of Africa. So we appreciate the entire university, Southeast, Enugu, Anambra, all of us, and Nigeria as a whole. But you know, as a human being, you can never satisfy everybody. There are times we read a lot of things in the social media. Nnamdi Azikiwe did this. He didn't do that. The Igbos are suffering because of what he didn't do. And all whatnot. Being human beings, my children and I always feel bad when we come across such comments. But one thing that after a while I will say, no, some of the comments are coming from younger ones who were born after the war, 1970, 70-something. So when I look at the age of those who are making such comments, I say, one day they will grow up to understand who Zik was and what he did for Nigeria, for Africa, and so on, and for the world. You know that our colonial masters are, let me say, they are very smart and intelligent. And when they find out that you are somebody that will not let them continue ruling Africans, they will go after you. And I think that's what happened to Zik and the colonial masters. They didn't want this smart man, this smart young man, to come and deny them. Look at all the resources in Africa. They were harvesting and taking everything. So this one will come and say, and make their people brainwash them so that they will not listen to us. No, we will not let Zik succeed. And that was where the problem is. Zik and the colonial masters. I feel that as a human being, you can never be perfect. You can never satisfy everybody. Some of the achievements of Nnamdi Azikiwe, or let me put it this way, some of the things he did were good. Some of the things he did were his best. And his best was good for some people, but his best was not good for others. What we are pleading the family and most supporters of Nnamdi Azikiwe is, please, if you know what he didn't do well, now that you are in Nigeria, Biko, start from where he stopped and do it better. Please. Zik never claimed that he's the all and all. Although they assigned everything to him, disappearance, this, Atlantic Ocean key, and this and that. But I know he's an ordinary human being like all of us. If you know that he did not do this well, please get in there and do it the best way so that you will correct it, because he never said, I am the best, I'm the only one to do it. Please. I would want to suggest to the Faculty of Social Sciences, all these lectures that have been delivered every year, 13 of them, why don't you put it together as a journal or a book? Because that is that legacy. Those of us that didn't know him will pick the book. Look at what Ibn Chambers, His Excellency, has said. I attended when the Kenyan president came. And also when, is it Oshiomhole or somebody? I think I was here also. They will dig out what Zik did. For those of us who didn't know to know. So I think one of the help that the Faculty of Social Sciences will do to Zik is to be publishing this. 13 chapters, not just the lectures, all the speeches by Ojeli Igbo, the governors, the chairman of the occasion, put them into chapters or whatever, any way you want to do it, and publish them. Many people will buy them. We are trying, the family, we are trying to digitalize his works. These are some of the things that will be digitalized and uploaded, so that wherever you are, University of California, Los Angeles, they gave us a little grant, and we are digitizing his documents. But the money has finished, and they said they're not giving us a second tranche. But we are very, very sure that God will also open another avenue for us to get more grants. So these are the things we will digitalize, and it will be for even those yet unborn will know exactly what Zik did and what Zik did not do. I am very, very happy whenever I listen to the positive ends of things that Zik did. I'm very, very happy. And I thank God that I'm alive, strong, to be able to attend some of these functions, to listen to them, so that when I'm no longer able to move around, I can then sit my grandchildren down and say, this is what Grandpa did, this is what... When you hear this, don't mind them. Please, Faculty of Social Sciences, let's do that. I will want to, at this end, to end my comment remarks, I want to say thank you to the new VC. From what I read here in his speech, 70 billion naira is not a joke. If that money is raised for us to put into the institute Chief Obi is putting together, it's going to be a huge investment in the university. I pray that it will be a huge success. Ladies and gentlemen, please, if I'm allowed to be talking because I'm so happy, I'm very, very happy today. You know, one of the days when we hear positive things, then I will say, let it continue. Let us keep talking about who? Nnamdi Azikiwe, Benjamin, Owele, Osawanya, Onitsha, and the father of all. Another thing I want us to bear in mind is that United States of Africa is still doable if our leaders, the young leaders in African nations, will come together. Because the Europeans and whatever, they are still coming into Africa to do what? Take all our resources to their own nations, save the money there, and then they are still seeing us as what? Nothing. Let us have United States of Africa. They are afraid, and that was why they hated Nnamdi Azikiwe. If there is one united Africa, then there will be no British government, no United States of America, and all other powerful European countries, and so on. So I want to stand here today, November 16, to say a big thank you. Yes, so I've forgotten Abogidi. Abogidi, please, sir. My husband, I know that you are for me, and you are with me. Thank you, sir, for coming. When I asked Ojeli Igbo, he said, oh, Abogidi is coming. I said, oh, thank God. I'm rest assured that everything will move on fine, because with his spirit here, the spirit of the whole of Onitsha is here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for honoring my husband and our father the way it is done now. Thank you, and forever, God bless you.
Thank you. You may be seated. Emeritus Professor Uche Azikiwe says she's very happy, and if you leave her, she will continue talking. She's a teacher, so I won't be surprised if she continues to talk. Dear friends, we also have in the room, attending this event, Chief Basil Ugu, We also have Professor J.C. Okafor, head of the Department of Political Science, the home department, or the dean of the faculty. We also have Chief Obiora Obuekwe, we welcome you. And we also have the Dean, Student Affairs, Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Professor Makodi Birenu Nabugu. Dean, you're welcome. My dear friends, this is the time to cut the birthday cake of Zik, the Right Honorable Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe of happy memory. And I'll be requesting that our benefactor should please lead the pack of the Vice Chancellor, Their Excellencies, the Mother of the Day, Your Highnesses, together with the Deputy Vice Chancellors and the advisor who is already seated on the front row to cut the cake. Today, the Right Honorable Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe would have been 102 years. DVCs, please, can you join us? And music department band, excuse me, please, thank you. My DG, please, I'd like you to moderate the cutting of the cake. You are the advisor, please.
Your Excellencies, the Chairman and distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor and privilege to moderate the cutting of this symbolic cake in honor of the greatest African, Right Honorable Nnamdi Azikiwe. Well, Your Excellency and Abogi, the chairman of the occasion, the revered benefactor, the distinguished university administration here, may I please ask that we raise our hands, place it on, yes, while we spell. I want to say Zik of Africa, so I'll start with Zik. Z-I-K-O-F-A-F-R-I-C-A, Zik of Africa. Thank you very much.
I wish you happy birthday. Ooh, yeah. Many, many, many happy returns. Ooh, yeah. I wish you happy birthday. Ooh, yeah. Many, many, many happy returns. Ooh, yeah. Ooh, yeah. I wish you happy birthday. Many, many, many happy returns.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, DGAU. We will now make a presentation of a memorabilia to the speaker of today's event. And may I request that the Dean please make available the plaque. The Sub-Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences, Dr. Kelechi Osai, will recognize your presence, and please can you join me here? May I respectfully invite our speaker for the 13th lecture to please step forward to receive this memorabilia. And may I request that it to be here? The stairway is here, please. And can I also ask the Vice Chancellor to please step forward to make the presentation to His Excellency.
On behalf of the Governing Council, management, and our students, in honor of your very eloquent speech and the profound impact this speech will have both here and beyond, we want to give you this as our token of appreciation for your being part of this successful event. Congratulations. Thank you very much.
May I also invite His Excellency, the chairman of today's occasion, Dr. Peter Mba, to please step forward and receive a memorabilia from the Vice Chancellor.
Your Excellency, for honoring us and for being punctual, not just for honoring you were here early enough, and to share our deep appreciation, we present this to you, sir. Thank you very much. We appreciate and we value your being here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Chancellor, for making the presentations. And to our recipients, we congratulate you.
Daniel.
And it will be important to mention that the governor of Anambra State received a similar memorabilia when he chaired this event last year. Thank you very much. As for the presentation made by His Excellency Dr. Ibn Chambers, I'd like to inform us that the print version of that speech will be presented, in fact, will be published and presented to the reading public before the end of this month. The Dean's office has already started the process. Ladies and gentlemen, may I now invite the advisor to the Zik lecture series, Professor Ayu Nonyalo, District Governor, Rotary International, to please make a brief remark. Somebody's not clapping for AU.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I would like to rest on the very well-established courtesies, very duly extended to our great guests here. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, well, let me reassure all of us that the well-thought-out vision that started more than 13 years ago is on what I call on autopilot. And it became international from day one. When Flight Lieutenant Jerry J. Rollins landed in Enugu with 001, straight from Ghana to Enugu. Enugu was not an international airport. But he had that permission. And more than 70% of all our guest lecturers and chairmen of this distinguished signature project of Nnamdi Azikiwe University, the best in Nigeria, are all international and beamed live across the globe. Many thanks to AIT. So dear friends, what am I to say? Other than saying once again, distinguished Senator Ben Obi, Ojeli Bondibo, and your darling wife, you will live for this university. You will live for Nigeria, you live for Africa. And all our guests, Nnamdi Azikiwe University, I'm sure, is eternally indebted to all of you over the years for making this event what it is. From strength to strength, and the best, what we need to showcase the world. This is Nnamdi Azikiwe University, and we are proud of this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The cultural troupe will entertain us, but in the meantime, I'd like to request for the goodwill messages that are available. If there is none, we'll just take the cultural troupe before we take the vote of thanks. Cultural troupe, please. We've earlier asked them to get set to step into the arena. Music department, give us interlude in the background as they come in.
Thank you. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, if you look very well, you will see the chairman of the Zik Lecture Series Committee doing what he knows how to do best. He's the one with the biggest drum. He's the one that is singing. He's the one that is dancing. He's a professor of mass communication of this university. Thank you. You can also see the head of the Department of Economics, Dr. Awka Anambra, doing it the right way. Thank you. Ugochi Maleze cultural dance. Omudi Okoka, we salute you. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. We appreciate the cultural troupe led by the very distinguished Professor Ebeze, who is also the chair of the organizing committee of the 13th edition of the Zik Lecture Series. Thank you very much, Prof, and the troupe for the performance. We are slowly, gradually, and yet steadily coming to the end of this event. But it's going to be incomplete if we don't put some royal touch to what we are doing by word of remarks. It will be my pleasure at this point, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to invite a man that holds a national honor of the Commander of the Order of the Federal Republic, who is also a distinguished alumni of the National Institute. The King Obi of Onitsha, His Royal Majesty Igwe Nnaemeka Alfred Achebe. He will make some remarks, and thereafter we'll take one announcement and the vote of thanks. Your Majesty.
As chairman of the occasion, I have to protest a little bit because I've checked the program. I didn't see anything. I didn't see this item on the program. But be it as it may, I'm the chairman, a distinguished lecturer, the chief host, my state governor, and Monaco. Unye Nzela Onitsha. Ulu Nne Nzela Onitsha. Her husband is a Red Cap chief, and her son is a Red Cap chief. Odrofele. I think the day is far gone. We can never say enough about Nnamdi Azikiwe. So we can stay at it tomorrow, but we know that the program for today is finite. So I wouldn't say much except to join thanking everybody who has made this event to take root, particularly Ojeligbo. Of course, Ambassador Ibn Chambers has come to give the lecture today. There'll be more lectures in the future, and I'm just whispering to Ojeligbo, which I think everybody's saying also, that the series should be published, and one I could say it so too. The series should be published, and AU, the faculty, should also have academic sessions on the themes of the year, and all of those go into publication for posterity.
Nnamdi Azikiwe was everything, but also he was the Owele also Anya of Onitsha. And people don't recognize how much also he contributed to the evolution and the recording of our own custom and tradition at Onitsha. I'm writing a lecture actually, which I'll be delivering here on the 17th of December, and I'm referring a lot to his own writing. So even at the community level, we are grateful to him. Zik was, we knew him as a politician. He was an academic, he was an intellectual, he was a philosopher, a journalist, a failed businessman. He tried as a businessman. Above all, he was a sportsman. And I think we forget all of this. He was a man of all parts. And I think he's left a legacy for us. Our duty is to emulate his legacy and then pass on to our own children and our own grandchildren, so that all of us will continue to improve on what's left behind. He's done his own part, and we have to continue where he left. On that note, I want to say thank you to everybody, particularly to the chairman of education. He came with a very large contingent. I was beginning to get worried that the Enugu contingent today is probably bigger than the Anambra State contingent. But Zik, but Zik will Madeira, and his footprints in Enugu are just as big as they are Anambra, everywhere else. And I want to thank the Enugu State Governor also for the Zik Center at Enugu. If you haven't been there, please go there. His house, when it was premier of Eastern Nigeria, has been converted into a museum honoring Nnamdi Azikiwe. On that note, thank you very much for the
We thank His Royal Majesty for those remarks. Please let's appreciate him one more time. Thank you. May I please request the chairman of the organizing committee of the 13th edition of this event to please be ready to make his vote of thanks. Professor Beze, please, can we have you here? I have the permission of the Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences to announce that on the 10th of December, by 10 a.m. at unizik Business School, there will be a workshop, a life-saving workshop on why young business executives die early and how to prevent it. Why young business executives die early and how to prevent it. Please join us in that occasion, 10 a.m. Tuesday, December 10, 2024 at unizik Business School. And I invite Professor Ebele to please make his vote of thanks as chairman of this edition of the Zik Lecture Series. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you so much, Mr. MC. Please, I want to start on existing protocol. I want to thank you all so much for today, which is a great day in our lives and in the life of Zik of Africa. Most especially, let me extend my warmest greetings and gratefulness and gratitude to His Excellency, Dr. Peter Mba, for gracing this occasion. And let me again thank our amiable VC, who just came on board, but has been doing wonderful things since he came on board. We thank you so much for the support you're giving to this lecture series. I think I will not end this thank you speech if I don't recognize the benefactor. Igwe, Chief Senator Ndiobi. We thank you so much, and your wife. And again, the wife of the person for whom we are here, Chief Professor Uche Azikiwe. We thank you so much. And to everyone here, I could not mention. And all of you out there, I thank you so much for having made time, or better time, to be here. We thank you so much for being here. And may the God Almighty, see you home. And let me also thank the Deputy Governor of Anambra State. He is here to represent the Governor of Anambra State. Thank you so much for being here. I thank you. Please, if you get home there, extend our greetings to our able Governor. I thank you so much, and may God bless you all. And also, I want to appreciate my 8th grade, Chiwotudo 8th grade, the cultural group that came to perform. They are my 8th grade. I'm from Awka Anambra here. And they said they were coming to support me, and they came. So I thank them so much. I thank you. And also thank our advisor, Professor A.U. Nonyele. He has been so wonderful advising us, guiding us. And if not for him, I don't think we'll be here today. Prof, I thank you so much. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair of the Organizing Committee. We appreciate those remarks you've made. We must close. Oh, that's okay. At this time, Your Excellencies, Your Royal Highnesses, erudite and distinguished professors in this room, members of the Fourth Estate of the realm, ladies and gentlemen, and I invite for closing prayer the Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic to please step forward and close us with prayer. We started with prayer, which he said he is also closing us with prayer. Professor Father Agbonen.
May we rise, please. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Almighty God, we thank you in a very special way for bringing this function this far. We thank you for the opportunity of having these great illustrious sons and daughters of Nigeria here. We thank you for the gift of the guest lecturer. We thank you for the wife of Zik. We thank you for the organizers, the faculty, the advisor. We thank you for His Excellencies. In a special way, I thank you for granting my brother and the Executive Governor of Enugu State safe passage to this place. And I pray in a special way that goes back, you may grant him safer passage. Grant safe passage to all of us and help us to benefit from the erudition of the ambassador. We also pray that you continue to steer this lecture series to greater heights. We thank you in a special way for our new Vice Chancellor and all of us who are gathered here for giving us that strength of courage and purpose and patience to be here. Thank you, Lord. And as we go, be before us, standing behind us and surrounding us with your grace, all to the greater glory of your name, through Christ our Lord. The Lord be with you. My Almighty God bless the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Peace be with you.
University anthem.
Pride of the state and the nation, fountain of knowledge and of wisdom, source of hope and confidence. Their freedom true, education we get, with reverence we honor you. Discipline, self-reliance, and excellence. Rethinking, we do you, we do
Group photograph inside the room as we remain in our positions until those on the head table leave the room. We thank the bossa for his presence. Mr. Egwatu, thank you very much for being here.
Enwere ihe na anyị Chukwu n'ezie n'ezie until they pass my papa God. Asị na enwere ihe na anyị Chukwu n'ezie n'ezie. Come on, say, Ifeanyi Chukwu, Ifeanyi Chukwu, Ifeanyi Chineke. Hey! Ifeanyi Chukwu. Say Ifeanyi Chukwu. Enwe ihe na-anyị Chukwu n'ezie. Enwere ihe na-anyị Chukwu n'ezie n'ezie.
Thank you. Hello. Hello. Thank you. Please, we'll request all our guests to please go upstairs. Follow the stairway and go upstairs. You have a guest register to sign. Our special guest, please go upstairs. You have guest register to sign. Thank you very much.
Mama, oh, you make for me, Nnamdi Igbo na nwere ife, Igbo nwere mmadụ, Igbo bụ mgbọrọgwụ Nigeria, Igbo bụ enyi, oh, you can gwa gị, Nnamdi Igbo nwere ife.